Good morning. Today's lesson is talking about love for enemies, and it's coming from Luke, the 6th chapter, verses 27 through 36. Actually, it's titled in the Bible, Love Your Enemy and the Obligation to Love. The verses read as follows. But I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. To one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. Give to everyone who begs from you, and from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. And as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. If you love those who love you, what benefit is that for you? For every sinner loves those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what benefit is that to you? For every sinner do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to get back the same amount. But love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. And your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. Our key verses for the day are 6:27 through 28, and let me read those again. It says, But I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. Now that just does not sound right when it comes to our natural inclinations. Those are not the first things that come to mind, but God is telling us to do these. An enemy is a person who is actively opposed or hostile to someone or something. Actively opposed or eager to prevent or put an end to, someone who is disapproving or disagreeing, or to be hostile, to be unfriendly to someone or to something. That's an enemy. And the Word of God tells us when we want to do, which is our natural inclination, to do just the opposite. The word hate means to feel intense or passionate dislike for someone. Passionate, showing or caused by strong feelings or a strong belief. Curse, an offensive word or phrase used to express anger or annoyance. Whether we do use those choice words now or not, and some of us, bless the Lord, have been delivered from using those choice words. God is telling us to be kind, to be good, to actually bless those who use those words to us now. Abuse, treat with cruelty or violence, especially regularly or repeatedly. Someone who is doing this to us on a consistent basis. We are to pray for them. The word bless means to speak well of or to praise or to extol. Extol, which means to praise enthusiastically. To bless abundantly, to invoke a benediction or a blessing upon someone, to give thanks for them. Now, bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. The desire for revenge is one of the deepest human impulses. Sadness, rage, powerlessness, and a host of other emotions drive us to this. Jesus is calling us to something very different, though. We are to love by choice. By choice, not by circumstance. Not by what's going on with us or to us at the moment, but by choice. Remember, we are always to overcome evil through love. And there are going to be times in our lives where we're faced or we're going through these different things, whether somebody, is hating us, whether somebody's cursing us, whether somebody is abusing us. We are called to love our enemies. And we will find that that can be closer to home than you think. And God still calls us to love our enemies. Luke 6:27-38 talks about the essence of the Christian life, and the essence of the Christian life is love. It says that with the greater principle stated in verse 31, and that says, and just as you want men to do to you, you also do to them likewise. So what I want done to me is something I need to practice doing to others. And it's easy for us to want the nice things, the good things to come to us. But it's not always easy for us to give it out. But God is saying that whatever I want done to me, I need to give it back or do it to others likewise. This love is manifested by responding to personal insult and injustice, not with retaliation or even passive endurance, not just to take it, but with positive and aggressive acts of goodness that are designed to redeem the offender. And I know that we think that God tells us to be good strictly for the benefit of us being good, but it's not for us. It's to also redeem the offender. And you talk about redeeming the offender, regaining them or getting them back. When somebody's hurting me, that's not what I'm thinking about. But that's what God's intent for our goodness toward them is to be. Is to help them to get back, to help them to be regained, or to help to gain if they're not in the body of Christ. And sometimes what you do is probably going to be what someone's going to see before they even read or see a Bible. So our goodness is not just designed for us to be good. It's not just designed or asked for us to do it because it's a good thing to do. It's actually designed to redeem the offender. The lesson is broken into two different categories. One is love for enemies, and the other one is love for all. Love for enemies is covered in 6:27-30, and we covered the key verses already. But it says, the believer who is growing becomes increasingly able to extend love to enemies. The believer who is growing. Some of us have been growing for a long time, and it still can be complicated. It still can be difficult. It still can be a challenge, but we're still called to do it. Love is defined by action. When it's talking about do good, that's action, not sentiment and not feeling. It's not based on how I feel. It's not even based on how I care about that person or the lack of caring for that person. Love costs something, and it doesn't come cheap. And we know that strictly by looking at what Jesus' personal cost was just to redeem us to the Father. It is not at all in our nature to take unkind treatment. I don't know of anybody who loves or relish in unkind treatment. It says, but the desire for retaliation or revenge is exceedingly strong in situations where we're challenged, where people are doing unkind things to us. And in verses 29 and 30, it talks about, to one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other one. You hit me on one cheek and I'm supposed to turn the other one? Okay. And it says also, for one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. That's clothing. That's something that's of necessity that I need. But if they take one thing, then don't even try to not let them take the other. And it says to give to everyone who begs from you, and from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. If they take it, don't look for it back. How many of us can actually lend to someone actually looking for nothing in return? It's if I give you $10, if I give you, $15, maybe I can go without looking for that back. But if I give you a substantial amount of money and your goal to me, you've stated this to me, is to give it back, then more than likely I'm going to expect it back. But God tells us to give to those who beg and to lend without looking for it in return. And what I've learned to practice, and like I said, I've learned to practice, is that when I'm in a situation and I do give something, is to not expect it back. I haven't been in a situation where I'm getting an extremely large amount away, but other things, other amounts of money that, are not that big. At one point, it would have been extremely big, but now, it's something you can do, and you don't look for it back, because when I do that, I live in freedom. I'm not actually tied to what that person does or do not do, and I don't linger on it. So if you can extend it without expecting it back, you release that person and yourself from any undue hardship later down the line if that person doesn't keep their word. Okay, so it says, the desire to retaliate or to get revenge is exceedingly strong in these situations. Jesus' standards are not based on what people do naturally. He doesn't work in our nature. He works through his spirit in us. Instead, they are based on God's own character and conduct. So the very essence of God is in us through his spirit, and that spirit allows us to conduct ourselves just as our Father would. Okay. In Matthew 5:38 through 45, which actually corresponds to these verses, it talks about the law of retaliation. In Exodus 21:24, and Leviticus 24:20, and Deuteronomy 19:21. And it was not intended to encourage personal revenge. The law of retaliation is not there for you to get your personal revenge, but is to protect the offender from punishment harsher than the offense that is warranted. Because we have a likely inclination to want to do worse to somebody than what they've done to us. So those laws were put in place so that that would not happen. Okay? Again, those laws are put in there to protect the offender from punishment harsher than his offense warranted. Let me read you Exodus 21:24. It says, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot. We've heard of those things. Leviticus 24:20, fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Whatever injury he has given a person shall be given to him. Deuteronomy 19:21, your eye shall not pity. It shall be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, and foot for foot. So whatever the offense was, that's what could be returned if retaliation was actually done. But God is telling us now, no. So Jesus forbids revenge by insisting upon positive good in the face of evil. He forbids it. And he insists upon positive good in the face of evil. Love for all is the second component of this lesson, and it covers verses 31 through 36. It says in 31 through 36, and as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. If you love those who love you, what benefit is that to you? For sinners even love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do the same to you, what good is that? What benefit is that to you? For sinners do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? For even sinners lend expecting to get back the same amount. But love your enemies, do good, and lend expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great. And you will be the sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. Love for all. The previous verses 27 through 30, describe specific behaviors that characterize the kingdom Jesus had come to establish. Verses 31 through 36, however, speak to the motives for those behaviors. And my husband always talk about, it's the motive, it's the motive. So, we are to give and to do good without expecting a return or reward for any kind. We are to give and to do good without expecting a return or reward of any kind. How many of us love to be acknowledged for the things that we do? How many of us have actually done things in secret and nobody ever knows? Nobody has ever found out that you've done it. Don't expect anything in return. Our behavior is not to be predetermined by our sense of what we are owed or what we owe. Good should always be shown to others for the sake of just being good, not for the sake of anything that we may want to receive in return. What is our motive for why we do what we do? Is it to get attention? Is it for people to sing praises of our name? Is it for people to call us up and to recognize us? Is it for us to be publicly displayed so that all will know what we've done? Our behavior is not to be predetermined by our sense of what we are owed or what we owe. Good should be shown to others for its own sake, just for being good, not for the sake of anything that we may receive in return. The kingdom of God is marked by a new approach to human relationships that explodes our idea of status, possession, and what we believe we are entitled to, and may even others in many other subjects. With that said, what is our attitude toward lending our possessions or resources? This is arguably one of the touchiest aspects of interpersonal relationships. How many friendships have been ruined because one may have lent money, or one may have given a particular thing that they loved or admired for use by someone else, and they ruined it? Or you lend someone your car and they crashed it. Or you lend someone your car and somebody hit it. Or you lend someone your car and they got a dinghy in the door. How many friendships have been destroyed because you've given stuff and things never came back the way that you expected it, or even in the same fashion in which it was given? One of the touchiest subjects is lending and giving. But again, if we do it without the intent of ever receiving it back, it frees us from expecting anything from that person. I'm not talking about your car. You know, you got to get your car back. And that's something that is another subject all in itself. But anything else that you give, I'm not even talking about a family heirloom. Most times that is not something that is given. But those things that are given that are used by those that we trust, or even those that we love, if it's something that we can release, let it go. And don't expect anything in return. Luke 6:32 and 34 talks about doing good for merely the sake of doing good. If we do that and we expect to be paid back for it, then it betrays a self-interest that has no place in the Christian life. We don't do things expecting to get paid back for it. What if Jesus wanted payment back for what he did? Could you pay that cost? Could you pay that price? Luke 6:35 and 36 talks about a Christian finds love, or Christian love finds its motivation in God's love for us. His mercy to us is the basis of the mercy we extend to others. A good way to know if we understand mercy is how we extend it to others. Excellent way to know if you really understand mercy. When you truly understand mercy, that means the compassion, the forgiveness that has been extended to you by someone who has every right to punish you or to give you what you justly deserve, and they choose not to. When you understand that, when you truly understand that, then you can extend it to others. Then when you think about the mercy that God himself has extended to us, I can speak for myself. When I think about the mercy that God has extended to me, being his daughter, being with him the majority of my life, and the choices that I've made and the things that I've done, and he has been merciful, I bless him that I can extend that mercy, and that I am yet growing to learn how to extend it even the more. So a good way to know if you understand mercy is how you extend it to others. Luke 6:35 talks about the validation of the love commandment. And it's found in our divine example through God himself. Because God does not give or withhold his kindness dependent upon the character of the recipient. So Jesus' disciples must be indifferent in their extension of kindness to friend and enemy alike. God does not withhold his kindness dependent upon the character of the recipient. Bless Jesus. Because like I said, my character has not always been it has not always been up to par. But thank God that he is merciful. It says here that you shall not take vengeance, and that's Leviticus 19:18, which is actually the golden rule is an extension of Leviticus 19:18. Do unto others as you will have them do unto you. Well, it says you shall not take vengeance to bear a grudge against the sons of your own people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. In all honesty, are we able to act in a way that is self-sacrificing? Being able to do so is an important component of our eternal reward. Can we act in the interest of others with not expecting anything in return? Can we act with no expectation of a thank you note or a pat on the back? To be the child of someone is to share in the character of that person or the object. When you think about your mom and your dad, think about the characteristics that you received from them. Some of them good, some of them not so good. But to be the child of someone means that you actually take on the characteristics of that person. To be the children of the Most High, we are called to do the same things that God our Father does, especially loving our enemy or enemies. We are challenged today to love or to have love for our enemies. And again, it's not based on our feelings. It's not based on our sentiment. It's based on the fact that God has commanded us to do so. Golden Gate, may the love of God shine in your hearts, and may you be merciful as God is merciful towards us. Thanks.